In this video, you will learn about the equations of circles. First, let's derive where the equation of a circle comes from using the distance formula. So it says, consider the following circle with a center at h, k. Use the distance formula to abstractly set up the equation to solve for the length of the radius. Let x1, y1 be h, k, and x2, y2 be x, y. So if I were to substitute into the distance formula, we have the distance equals, and we're substituting into the formula. So first, it's requesting, or I'm filling in the value of x2, which from looking at what's given is our value of x. So I can fill in x minus the value of x1, which from the given is h, or the x coordinate at the center. So x minus h, close parentheses squared, plus, then we're substituting in the value of y2, which based on what's given is the value of y. So it's y minus y1, which based on the givens is k, or the y coordinate of the center. So it'll be minus k, close parentheses squared. So now we've just substituted for the x's and the y's. The other thing is we know that this is really, this distance we're using is solving for the length of the radius, which we're going to treat as r, as given in the diagram. So I can rewrite this as r equals, and we have our x minus h squared plus y minus k squared. Now, the only thing that is typically done beyond this is usually we don't like to leave an equation with a square root. So in order to undo the square root, we square both sides, because taking the square or raising to the second power of a square root undoes the square root. So it becomes r squared equals x minus h, close parentheses squared, plus y minus k, close parentheses squared. And the last thing that's typically done is we rewrite it, we just flip the order of the equation. So it's rewritten as x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. And this is our standard form of the equation of a circle. Now again, to review, the standard form of the equation of a circle is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals the radius squared. Again, using that, we have the center is located at h, k, and the radius equals r. So essentially, if we want to rewrite it with blanks, we could treat it as it's x minus the blank plus y minus the blank equals the blank squared. So in the first blank, we're filling in the x coordinate of the center. The next blank is the y coordinate of the center. And then the last blank is really the radius. So now if we want to graph the equation, remember the equation of any circle is the form x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals the radius squared. So if I'm given the equation of x minus 1 squared, so we're given x minus 1 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals 4. Now, if I want to fill into the blank to figure out what my coordinates are, we know it should be x minus some number squared plus y minus some number squared equals the radius squared. Now, if we want to substitute, we notice that we can take this number 1 and just fill it in below. And I can take this number 3 and fill it in below. So I'm transferring these numbers. The other thing is we know that this is really equivalent to the radius squared. So I could say the radius squared equals 4. In order to solve, you would take the square root of both sides, which gives us that the radius equals 2. So this is equivalent to 2 squared. So the equation of the circle is given as shown here. Now the numbers in red are the center. So this means the center is located at 1, 3, and the radius is equal to 2. So if I first graph my center at 1, 3, go over 1 and up 3, and then using my radius as 2, I'm going to graph 4 points. I'm going to go up 2, to the right 2, down 2, and to the left 2. And then do the best you can to make this as circular as possible, creating your graph. For our next example, we're given x minus 1 squared plus y plus 3 squared equals 16. So if I rewrite it, I have x minus 1 squared plus y plus 3 squared equals 16. So I need to figure out what's going to fill in to each of the blanks. Now if I want to look above, I have a minus 1, so I can fill in minus 1 below. So I can transfer this number. The next one, I notice that I have a plus 3. However, down below it's minus 3. So this means it's really minus negative 3. So we can transfer this number, but we have to switch the sign. And then lastly, I can say that this is equivalent to r squared. So I could say that r squared equals 16. So if you take the square root of both sides, you get the radius is equivalent to 4. So the radius is 4. So now using this as my equation, we know that the center is located at 1, negative 3. So I can go over 1 and down 3. And the radius equals 4. So if I graph my 4 points, I go up 4, to the right 4, down 4, and to the left 4. And then do the best you can to draw in your circle. For the next example, I'm given the equation. So it's x plus 1 squared plus y plus 3 squared equals 11. So if I'm filling in to the blanks, we have to figure out what would fill in for each blank. So first, I notice that I have a +1. So in order to transfer this number, this would have to be minus -1. So we switch the sign. The next number with the y is +3, which in order to make it minus, it'll be minus -3. So we switch the sign. And then lastly, we have r squared should equal this 11. So if I set r squared equal to 11 and I take the square root, we get a decimal. So if I take the square root of 11, you get 3.31662479, which we're going to round to the radius is equal to about 3.3. So I'm going to treat it that my radius is about 3.3. So now, using this information, the center, we can still graph the same. So it's -1, -3. So I can go back 1 and down 3. And then my radius is a decimal, so we're just going to have to estimate the best we can. Since it equals about 3.3, I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, and a little bit. Go to the right 1, 2, 3, and a little bit. Go down 1, 2, 3, and a little extra. And 1, 2, 3 to the left, and a little more. So while it's not exact, in terms of what we have for our graph, this is the most exact it can possibly be. In our next example, we're given x squared plus y squared equals 44. So if I want to fill this in to that general format to figure out my vertex and the radius, the first thing you'll notice is that there's nothing with x squared, which means this is really like x minus 0. And the same thing for the y, there's nothing there, so it's really like y minus 0. Now lastly, for the radius, should equal 44. So the radius squared equals 44. So you can take the square root of both sides, which gives you the square root of 44 is 6.633249581, which I'm going to round so that the radius is about 6.6. So the equation of the circle is given to us here. So the center is at 0, 0, which I can graph, and the radius equals about 6.6. So I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and a little more than a half. Go over 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and a little more than a half. Go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, a little more than a half. And then to the left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and a little more than a half. And then do the best you can to draw in your graph. And this would be an example of what we consider to be an equation of a circle centered at the origin because the center is at 0, 0. In this example, we have to fill in to the equation of the circle using what's given. So the first blank is the x-coordinate of the center, which from what's given is 16. So I can fill in minus 16. The next blank is the y-coordinate of the center, which I can identify as -9. So it's minus negative 9. And the last blank is the radius, which I can identify as 3 from what's given. Now we can simplify this. X minus 16 is going to stay as is. So it stays as x minus 16 squared. The y minus negative 9 can become y plus 9. And 3 squared becomes 9. So our equation of the circle is given as x minus 16 squared plus y plus 9 squared equals 9. Now, if we want to write the equation of the circle, there's two pieces of information we need to know. We need the center of the equation and what the radius is equal to. So if I identify my center of the equation, in this case is where I just put my red point. So my center will be at 3, negative 1, and the radius is the distance from that center to the edge of the circle, which in this case, it gives us a radius of 1. So if I set up my equation, with the blanks, I can first fill in the x coordinate, which is 3, the y coordinate, which is negative 1, and then my radius fills into the last blank, which is 1. So if I simplify this, the x minus 3 just stays as x minus 3 squared. Y minus negative 1 becomes y plus 1 squared. And then 1 squared is equal to 1. So my final equation would be x minus 3 squared plus y plus 1 squared equals 1. For the next example, the first thing we identify is the center and the radius. So looking at the graph, the center would be located where I put my mark, so it would be at 0, negative 4, and the radius, or the distance from the center to the edge of the circle, would be 2. So if I fill out my general form of the equation, I'm going to fill in the blanks. So I can fill in the x coordinate in the first blank, the y coordinate in the next blank, and then my radius fills into the last blank. Now if I simplify, instead of writing x minus 0 squared, I can write just x squared. Instead of writing y minus negative 4, it becomes y plus 4, and 2 squared is equal to 4. So your final equation is x squared plus y plus 4 squared equals 4.